Hi, I'm Eric Friedman. I'm the Executive Director of the Mad River Valley Chamber of Commerce, and we are here today for our first in-person community conversation. These programs have been remote for the past 15 months, and it's really great to be back with real-life human beings and talking to our community members once again. The community conversation series is made possible by our sponsors for today, which is the Warren Store and the Pitcher Inn, as well as all of the members of the Mad River Valley Chamber of Commerce. And today we are here in the Mad River Valley Arts Gallery in Waitsfield to talk about the local arts scene and create some awareness about some of the various businesses and organizations that make up our local arts scene. And we're also here to kind of broaden and talk about our community's understanding of what the arts is really all about. And it's not just the traditional arts of painting. It includes various mediums such as 3D art, music, culinary, and theater. So joining me here today is Gary Eckhart, who is an accomplished painter, and he is also the co-owner of Moose Walk Studio Gallery up on Lincoln Gap Road. Lots of drive-by traffic there. He's also the head honcho, I don't know if it's the right word. Sort of. Head honcho of the Mad River Valley Arts organization. And we also have Pam Day from Blockhouse Studio. And we have Evan Premo, who is the co-founder and artistic director of Scrag Mountain Music. He's a double bassist and composer, and is, among other things, a member of the New York City-based chamber music collective Dakota. I was really impressed with that. I don't know what it is, but it seems really impressive. And we also have Spencer Kirk-Jackson. He's from the...
What?
Jackson. Oh, I screwed up your name. I don't know. Spencer Kirk-Jackson from the Salt and Stand Studio in Warren, right by Warren Falls. Yep. Don't park in his driveway. That's like a big thing. And very interesting place. It's a yoga studio and glass studio. Not a lot of those in the world.
No.
For sure. So thank you guys for joining us today. I'd like to start out with just a little bit of an introduction from each of you. Gary, you want to start us off and kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your relation to arts here in the Mad River Valley?
I moved here permanently 15 years ago. I was a professor for SUNY Fredonia, head of the theater design program, and moved here basically because of the skiing and the arts. Very impressed with the art scene around here.
Oh, that's cool.
And I looked all over the state of Vermont before moving here, picking this purposely. Yeah.
And are you glad you did?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
Totally.
Excellent. Pam?
I own Blockhouse Studio, which is our community pottery studio.
Right around the corner here.
Right around the corner.
Yep.
You could throw a rock at it. I am an avid potter, although since opening the studio, I don't have a lot of time to make that much pottery, but I'll get there. And I have been into all forms of art my entire life. My previous career was in set decorating for film and television, but that required too much travel, and I just wanted to be home in Vermont. And this was a great way to connect with the community and bring a very therapeutic art form to people.
And a great place to bring up your kids.
And a great place to bring up my kids. That's why I can't travel anymore.
Awesome. Thanks, Pam. Speaking of kids, Evan's got
I've got a couple of kids as well, who are 6 and 8. And yeah, I'm Evan Premo, and my wife and I, Mary Bonhag, who's a singer, soprano. We founded Scribe Mountain Music now, I think, 11 years ago. And I grew up in Michigan and met Mary at school there. And after going a few other places, we ended up here in central Vermont and founded Scribe Mountain Music, named after beautiful Scribe Mountain here. And I'm a composer, do a lot of writing music, and as well as a bass player. And so in addition to Scrag Mountain Music, I'm a freelance composer and performer chamber musician.
Awesome. Thank you. Spencer.
So, Spencer Kirk-Jackson, a co-owner of Salt and Sand Studios. I've been blowing glass for about 11 years, teaching for about 10. Previously, I was an IT guy, but always on the art side of things, so 3D graphics and things like that. But so we're in a kind of unique place in Vermont that we are the only glass-blowing school in Vermont. We're the only place that not just doesn't offer just quick experiences, but offers learning paths to taking up glassblowing as a hobby or even as a trade.
Cool. Well, thank you. It's interesting. There's really, what I've found in my position at the Chamber is there's a lot of kind of interesting, quirky things like that I didn't know when we talked just last week. Yeah. I was like, oh, I had no idea that this was like the only glassblowing school in the entire state. And yeah, it is really interesting, and about, again, kind of the uniqueness about it and how you ended up here, Gary. I'd like to start with you in terms of, we're here in the Mad River Valley Arts space, the gallery here, which is a beautiful gallery here, and there's some amazing artwork here, and it's ever-changing array of art that's happening here. Can you tell us, and this is kind of the hub of the arts here in town, can you talk a little bit about the organization?
Well, Mad River Valley Arts produces a number of shows itself, but our main function is sort of to promote all the arts in the valley. Our charter doesn't allow us to do much more than gallery shows, but we can promote music events, theater events, and activities that other studios and galleries may be doing. This year we're producing 4 shows in this gallery space, 3 outdoor events, and we're working on 3 shows in the Red Barn Galleries at LaRue Farm. Of course, our big anchor event is the National Green Mountain Watercolor Exhibition.
Which I hear is big in France.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So this is pretty exciting stuff.
We just found out that our show was picked as one of the top summer art shows in the world by Articolor magazine.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Congratulations.
And,
So clearly you're doing a lot of good PR work for Mad River Valley Arts.
Well, not only for Mad River Valley Arts, for the whole valley.
Yeah.
Because the article clearly mentions Mad River Valley twice in the article.
No, it's really important, because I think, while people might not necessarily come here for the arts, it is a huge part of the experience that people come here. And if they're not skiing or they're hiking or biking, or they come here for a wedding or whatever, I think it's one of those things that, the arts are everywhere here. Even at the gas station over at like the VG, there's sculptures in there and things like that, which is kind of unique. Valley Arts is having a big kickoff celebration, right? You want
Yes.
to talk a little bit about that?
We were originally going to have an opening on June 20th for the Green Mountain Show. And then we found out from the state they might not open the state until July 1st. So like many other events in the valley, we had to rejuggle our schedule. So we are now having a celebration of the return of all the arts on Sunday, July 18th.
And where's that going to be?
That's going to be in the Green Mountain Watercolor Exhibition.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Which is over at the Big Red Barn?
Big Red Barns at LaRue Farm.
Yeah.
And any arts organization is welcome to come and set up a table and promote their events.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to come and draw.
That's good.
That's frightening, actually.
Oh, good. We'll make you a featured artist.
No, that would not be a good thing. The Stick Figures by Eric Friedman.
That's okay.
That's great. And I think one of the other interesting things, like you guys do the garden tour as well,
Right.
which is gardening is certainly an art, absolutely, right?
It's sort of a dual weekend, because the garden tour is the day before. So people can come to the valley for the whole weekend, and there'll be something for them to do.
Yeah. One of the other events, our office is over on Bridge Street, where the visitor center is, and one of the things not last year, but the year before, was the Plein Air Festival, and just seeing the number of people out painting all of the beautiful scenery around here was a really cool thing. And talking to some of those artists and how, they they came here for that, and it was really a...
Yeah, and we're expanding it to 3 days this year instead of 2. We want to eventually have it grow up to a week-long festival in the valley.
And are those all professional artists?
No.
Or?
We are a non-juried event. Anyone can come and paint. We even have a kids plein air event. We give all the supplies to the kids and just let them go.
That's really interesting. Well, thanks, Gary. Yep. Anything else you want? And you do want to also to ask about? Tell us about Moosewalk Studios. That's your business. That's
my own private business. Yeah, we're located on Lincoln Gap Road, and everybody says, "How do you run a gallery and studio on Lincoln Gap Road? It's 2 miles from nowhere." People don't realize that during the non-snow season, Lincoln Gap Road is one of the more traveled roads in the valley. So we have our studio open to visitors, and we give them tours of how paintings are done, how we do our framing, how we do our printing, etc.
Right, and Rourke Charlo shares the space with you, and he has he's a photographer.
Right.
Does real interesting stuff. Yeah. Well, thanks so much. We're going to turn it over to Pam at Blockhouse Studios, and tell us a little bit about Blockhouse, because you got classes, you can be a member, you can...
Yeah, so Blockhouse is a community pottery studio. We offer classes, workshops, private lessons, and memberships to people with experience. So to become a member, you have to either take classes with us or prove that you can make pottery, because members get all access to the studio. They get their own code, they're on their own in there anytime they want. And we also have a shop at the front where members work, and a lot of our instructors' work is on display. But yeah, it's been, an interesting first year and a half of business. We did open.
Yeah, you had some great timing with this, huh?
Yeah, we opened barely 6 months before the pandemic hit, and I do not recommend opening or starting a community-based business right before a global pandemic, but it...
we'll keep that in mind for the future.
Yeah, hopefully someone will send a memo out next time. But it's been amazing. We've had amazing support. Just in the short time we were running classes before everything shut down, people fell in love with it. I mean, there's people already in love with pottery. It's one of the most therapeutic art forms. I mean, you could say that for anything, but I've been amazed with people who've come to our studio and started doing pottery from all backgrounds. I mean, from teachers to lawyers and doctors to painters to, farmers who just say this is better than therapy. And,
Interesting.
So it's, in the short time we were open before everything shut down, we were able to forge some really strong relationships with students and members. We had just started taking members before closing, and the support from the community has been amazing, and people just could not wait for us to open up again. And it's been great for me to really connect. Before I was traveling for work all the time and I didn't know so many people in our community that I now know who come into our space to create and socialize too. There's a real community just within our walls. And yes, while running the business has taken away from my own pottery making, it's just as gratifying. Yeah. I mean, unloading the kiln full of other people's work is like almost more exciting than my own, and seeing how people who had never touched clay before have progressed. And I mean, sometimes I just get so excited pulling people's work out who, only a couple months ago couldn't even throw a bowl, And
there's a lot of potters around. And one of the things I've been impressed with is how many of them are teaching.
We are very fortunate to be in this valley. I mean, like you're saying, the arts in this valley are so strong, and there's so many talented people that was one of the things that, I don't know, my husband and I talk about it all the time, that in another location this might not be possible, or I would just be teaching all the classes, which wouldn't be possible with 2 little kids.
Right.
No, we have incredibly talented potters right here in the valley, and they are, I mean, I owe everything to them. They have been, I mean, all of them have been so generous. Polly Walford, Luke Iannuzzi, Noel Bailey, just so generous with their time and their knowledge. I was not a professional potter going into this. I just loved pottery and making pottery, and having their many, many more years of experience to help inform me and give me advice and to teach. You know, I can teach pretty okay, but they, you know, I feel like if I have these extremely, you know, established potters willing to teach, why not have them teach while I do all the nuts and bolts, and I work on my teaching.
So are you finding that it's mostly local folks that are members and taking classes, or is it visitors?
Well, you know, we were doing workshops and private lessons with tourists before the pandemic, and when we reopened, we, you know, wouldn't let anyone take classes or private lessons who had been out of the state for 14 days, so that really, you know, cut out the tourist population. But the really interesting thing is so many of the second homeowners were living in their second homes, and started doing private lessons, and once the kids' classes started again, having their kids do classes. And one of the silver linings of COVID, I think, has been, you know, I always felt like the community was very disjointed with the second homeowners and locals, and they've just become so much more part of the community, and I've gotten to know so many of them, and they've really appreciated having this place to come to be creative with their kids, far from their, you know, normal communities. So
and I think people don't realize that, you know, half of our homes in our community are owned by second homeowners, and they are a huge part of what we do, and we're really glad to have them.
And I'm grateful for having the opportunity to get to know them, because they were just, you know, an entity I didn't know before. So no, it's been great, and having their kids, they've been grateful, we're grateful. I love having the kids' classes.
Yeah, and it's been really exciting having you. I remember when you opened up, it was just so nice to have a relatively younger person, you know, opening up a business here and doing something in the arts. It's like, it's just a breath of fresh air, and there's so many things like that, and what you're doing, you know, over in Warren, and well, you're not one of the younger guys, but like, but there's a kind of a resurgence of activity in lots of different sectors. So it's great to have you. One of the things I want to make sure you talk about too is because I did a lot of shopping there for Christmas. The shop there is beautiful.
Thanks.
And so clearly you did set design, right? Yes. If you haven't been in there, it's a really remarkable looking place.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's been fun to curate it. You know, obviously pottery is the focus, but we have other stuff to complement pottery, and it's been, yes, using my skill set as a set decorator to curate the shop and find things that complement the pottery has been fun. And it works well. I mean, people will only buy so much pottery, so it's nice to have, you know, things to go with it. And you know, at the holidays.
It was awesome, and it is. It's a beautiful place to go into. At the visitor center, I always tell people like, oh, where should we go? I was looking at where should we go, and I tell them like, oh, go check this place out. And
I have to say, part of what makes it so beautiful is my husband is a woodworker and built everything out of ash from my mom's property, and it really came out well.
Nice, keeping it wicked local yokel, huh?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, he did an amazing job. I couldn't have done any of it without him.
Yeah, and you can't miss it right here in Village Square, right?
That's right.
Big sign up top. Not too big though, right?
Not too big.
Not too big.
That's a story for another day.
Yeah, that's right, exactly. So Evan, Scrag Mountain Music, professional musician, Michigan, but you like working in New York and doing all this stuff. And how did you and your wife decide to start Scrag Mountain Music?
Yeah, well, I had just finished a fellowship in New York City, and Mary had finished her master's degree at Bard College.
Oh, I went to Bard.
How did you? Oh,
Cool.
We'll talk later.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a conversation.
That's right. And so we were kind of deciding what was next. You know, we were both at this kind of point in our lives where we didn't know what to do next. Although we knew that we would want to end up in somewhat of a rural community eventually, and not a typical thing for classical musicians to move out to the woods, right? It tends to be a pretty city thing, because that's where the communities are. It's where orchestras tend to be, and big opportunities for classical musicians. So, but I also I was interested in woodworking. I think I was needing some. Music is such a non-physical medium. You know, it just happens and then it's gone. And so I needed a little bit of physical.
I hear they record it now.
Well, no, but it's not. It's not that. That's not it. It's a representation of it, just like maybe like a print of an original. But for me, it's the live music, which is why I'm so grateful this pandemic is ending. Anyway, came to learned about. Yes, tomorrow did a woodworking course there. That really brought us to this area, and then simultaneously thought, well, let's do an experiment in rural music making, rural classical music, and can we create a residency-based chamber music series? So we'll bring our friends from all over, live together for a week, have them stay with neighbors, eat together, rehearse music for 4 or 5 days, and then bring it to the community and have our community enjoy it and bring it into schools. And so that has remained our model. And now we're so grateful to be returning to live music after this year of being all virtual, which has been a big learning curve, but so grateful for the technology that has allowed us to do that.
Yeah. So what you got planned for this summer?
Yeah, well, we're doing our first live in-person concert August 14th, which will be at Phantom Theater.
Oh, nice.
And that will be,
That's such a nice venue.
It's such a nice venue. The plan is to be outside, so we'll be on the porch, and just because we know people are still getting comfortable with the idea of being in groups together. So weather permitting, we'll be outside on the lawn there. And that'll be a really fun concert. It's a celebration of the Friends of Mad River's 30th anniversary, which happened last summer during the pandemic. In celebration of that, a very generous anonymous donor commissioned me to write a new piece of music, a string quintet, about watersheds, and particularly inspired by the Mad River Valley watershed. Nice. And so I've just as a son of biologists, it's been so fun to dig deeply into that concept of watersheds, both kind of spiritually as well as the landform, and I've always been fascinated by divides and watersheds, and so this concert will be celebrating watersheds, particularly the Mad River Valley, and we'll also be featuring Brian Blanchette, who's this really wonderful Abenaki singer-songwriter who lives over in Graniteville. And so we'll be creating some string accompaniments to accompany his music. And he has some beautiful music about water.
So this is in August?
August 14th at 1 p.m. At Phantom Theater. So we're looking forward to having as many people as can come out.
It's good to see the Phantom Theater coming back to life too.
Yes, absolutely.
Tracy, we were hoping that Tracy was going to be able to be here today.
Yeah.
And there's they're doing some theater stuff there as well.
Yes, they are.
In August, and
it'll be wonderful to have that going again for sure.
So one of the things that we wanted to talk about was like the how there's all the different arts, and that's not just the traditional sorts of things. Culinary is certainly an art. So tell me about the Scrag Mountain musical cookbook.
Oh, the cookbook, yeah.
I was looking at the website. I'm like, That's interesting.
Yeah, well, almost 2 years ago now, we were celebrating the beginning of our 10th season. And to celebrate that, we released a cookbook because
of course you did.
food has always been an important part of our music making because it's well, for one thing, it's what roots the musicians in this place, I feel, is that, you know, we're eating food that is from this place, and therefore infusing the music with energy and essence of the place. And so when we rehearse music and eat together, that influences the music that we're hearing. Not, I mean, directly, but sometimes maybe not noticeably, but certainly happening. So anyway, and food is a passion of Mary and mine, and always has been. And so these are a bunch of recipes that we feed our artists, and also suggestions of listening for each recipe. There's a listening.
So you're pairing them.
Pairing them, yep, exactly. So that, and those are either music that we featured on past Scribe Mountain music concerts or artists that we've had here before. So.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's really, really cool. Yeah, you didn't think I was going to ask you about that.
No, I didn't, but I'm really glad because it's a great little cookbook, and I pull it out every once in a while to remind myself about some of my own recipes.
Yeah, and Scrag Mountain does a lot of other stuff. I mean,
yeah.
Can you just give like kind of, you know, briefly talk a little bit about
sure,
like,
yeah,
other activities?
Yeah, and we're broadly based in the central Vermont area. Mary and I now live in Marshfield. We lived in Northfield for a couple of years when we first moved to Vermont, and here in the valley for a couple of years. And so basically central Vermont, but we go further afield in Vermont as well. But we do these concerts, and then education is really important to us, both in schools and for students, but also adult education. We do very open rehearsals where we'll invite our audiences to come witness a rehearsal, but not a dress rehearsal, not the last rehearsal, like one where we're just getting the music together so they can really see how it comes together and ask questions as we go. And then we've also, last year, I guess last year was kind of a wash.
We know what you mean.
Yeah. So the season before the pandemic, we started the Lullaby Project, which is a Carnegie Hall project that we're collaborating as a satellite partner. And there are satellites all over the world, but we're Vermont's satellite partner. So basically we work with mothers who are either pregnant or have infants to help them write lullabies for their babies and to connect to their children. And so we have a process, and we've been working with Writers for Recovery, which is a really wonderful writing organization based in the Northeast Kingdom. And so they help the mothers write the lyrics, and then we come in and help them write the music. And so we've been working with various partners in that, initially the Lund Center up in Burlington, and we'll be doing some work in the Northeast Kingdom this summer and into fall.
Oh, that's amazing. It's like it really epitomizes what we're talking about. We're just bringing together all these different art forms, and
yeah.
You guys really do that a lot more than I was even realizing, which is cool.
Well, I mean, I think as a musician, I do love collaborating with many different art forms. And writing and literary arts are certainly a very natural collaboration, especially being married to a singer and me being a composer. I love setting text to music. But collaborations in visual art is something we want to do more of, and we have done some in the past. And so it's those intersections are really wonderful.
So can you do maybe some glass blowing music?
That would be wonderful. I think
right?
we should.
I have actually done musical collaboration pieces before. Over the school in Seattle, Pilchuck, we did. Paul Rucker was the musician, and he did interpretive music of the piece that we were making that we hadn't designed until we heard him start playing.
Yeah.
So he was interpreting what we were making from us interpreting what he was playing.
Wonderful.
So who's interpreting who?
Yeah. Exactly.
And a very abstract piece came out of it, but it was more about the performance than the actual end goal of what was made.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's and then welcome to the music world there,
Yeah.
right? It's not about the physical piece, which I'm so jealous that you have that when you're done. Something to look at, something
Only
to hold.
sometimes.
Yeah, right.
The problem with glasses is it's very fickle.
And fragile.
And fragile.
Actually, this is something that we did during one of our pandemic offerings. Was I worked with visual artist painter Glenn Colburn Hutchinson, who's involved with the front gallery in Montpelier, and he and I did kind of what you're describing. We really worked a lot together, improvising, which I suppose for painters is kind of what they do in many ways, but really thinking about like who's leading who, like thinking a lot about that idea and like really being intentional about, okay, I'm going to lead now this one, like this 5-minute chunk. Now you lead this 5-minute chunk. Now let's see if we can be more fluid about that and inspire one another. And that's what we were eventually able to get to, and then.
Well, I mean, so for us with glassblowing is that many people who watch glassblowing think of see glassblowers working together, and they say, "Oh, it's a dance," and very rarely you'll never see a glassblower working without music. We all work to music, and so not to jump in on your conversation.
No, please no.
But for me, one of the unique things about glassblowing is that we don't blow glass on our own. We have to blow as a team, and we have to finish what we start. So we can't start a piece, put it to one side, come back to it later. We have to do the whole thing in one go.
No editing.
No editing. And I've worked on pieces that have been 6-8 hour long pieces.
Wow.
And there'll be a consensus, is like, if the music stops, people are looking around like, what's going on? They get the music back on. So music is a huge part of glassblowing because it is a dance. We don't have time to communicate. You don't be there. We need people to know not to be in the way of where the glass is going to go. And that's so I've worked on pieces of my own. There's a piece in the gallery here that took 6 people and me to make. 3 people just to lift it because it was 80 pounds of glass on the end of a pipe.
Wow.
People who are watching us were saying there's no communication and you've got loud music blaring. How do you know? And it's that interpretation.
That's so cool.
People reading what was going on, and that's I have really enjoyed working with musicians. My wife's family is hugely musical. And having our nephew's band has come and done music with us before. So
cool.
I definitely want to talk with you.
Yeah, let's talk
more.
about it. That sounds great. I bet that will happen in the future.
Yeah,
It's really cool to have these kinds of these conversations and bring people together like this. It's nice to have people back in the same room again.
Exactly.
Which is really good. So, Spencer, you have the only glassblowing school in Vermont, and I was visiting last week, and I had not been there ever, and I was really interested. I was shocked to hear that.
So we do differentiate that on the thing. There are other places in Vermont that you can go for glass experiences, but those are places where you're in there for 20 minutes, half an hour. They do something around you, and you have made a piece with them. And it might sound like I'm belittling those. They're not. They're great. They get people to see glass and feel glass. The difference with us is we want people to actually come and learn. So we don't really do the little half-hour thing. We'll do a half-day workshop, and you will get to the point of taking glass from the furnace yourself and shaping the glass and doing the thing with a teacher's assistance, because you're dealing with a material that's at 2,000 degrees plus. There's a safety thing there. But we are wanting it to be a learning experience more than just I went to a glassblower experience. And that's the differentiator, that unlike Pam, where we offer, we want to engage the community in having classes they come to every week for a series of weeks towards an end goal, and build up a community where they would then can, like I said earlier, we don't work on our own. So I have an assistant who works with me pretty much every time I work, and I'm his assistant when he needs to do some work. But we're building up a community now who are becoming each other's assistants. So they can rent my studio, and if they're comfortable, I'll leave them to it if they've been in there enough times, like you were saying with having the experience. Or I'll sit at one end of the studio and I'll be, doing my computer work that I have to get done, but I'm there in case they have any questions or something.
Making sure the music doesn't stop.
Making sure the music doesn't stop. It's very important. One of the first things that we fixed up, even before we fixed up all the equipment, was the stereo. Mm-hmm. We installed a stereo before we installed a furnace. So, because you had the music to do all the other work.
Yeah, and I was really impressed with the infrastructure there. I didn't realize how much of an infrastructure commitment there is, and that you can explain a little bit about like how long it takes to heat up.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of equipment in glass blowing, which is also why there's not a lot of glass. I mean, we're lucky in the valley. We have, including ourselves, 3 glass blowers in the valley. Mm-hmm. But I've worked with Mad River Glass here in Waitsfield, and they're very happy that we teach, because then he doesn't have to deal with that question anymore. Because they're a production. Their job is they make lots of glass. But
That's how Ulrika felt. She was so happy when we opened the studio. She said, people come into my studio all the time asking if I'll teach classes, and she had no interest in teaching it because she's production, and that's a full-time job.
Exactly, and that's the same thing for Mad River Glass. So he has our brochure in their window, in their thing. As soon as somebody comes in, he's just like, no, go and talk to these guys.
Go away.
But the reason there's not many, it's a hard art to get into, because I have to have a furnace which cost more than my truck.
And he has a nice truck.
But it's, the furnace which takes 14 days to get up to temperature and fill with glass.
Wow.
And costs a significant amount of electricity every day, almost like dining out electricity a day to run. But then you have to have kilns to cool all the glass down slowly, because glass hates changing temperature quickly. And we have to have a reheating furnace to reheat the glass while we're working, and that runs off propane, and that has to be heated up to just a mere 2,600 degrees. And it's an intimidating room when it's going. We've been very lucky. We've restored a barn that we think is from the 1850s, 1860s. Of course, there's not a lot of documentation in the area about when things were built. Things just tended to be built here. So we have this beautiful old barn. From the outside, it looks brand new. From the inside, is all the original wood. And as Eric's saying, there's a lot of equipment in this barn. And it's, once we get our furnace up to temperature, we don't really want to turn it off for a year. So we've been, in glass blowing parlance, we've been cold now for 15 months. We have a mini furnace which we can actually start up, which only takes a mere 3 days to get up to temperature and filled with glass. We can use that for 3 or 4 days, refilling it as necessary, and then it only takes a day or so to cool down. The main furnace takes nearly a month to get to being cold enough to actually fix if there's anything going wrong. Because if you imagine something sitting at 2020 degrees for a year, it's storing a lot of heat. There's a lot of insulation in there. So it's a huge infrastructure upfront thing. But hopefully once you've got it going, it lasts a while.
So you're going to get things going pretty soon, right?
Well, we're at the moment, we're offering some kiln working classes, so kiln fusing and kiln slumping. So fusing glass plates and ornaments. We're offering flame working, which is a sort of precursor to furnace glass, in that you work with a torch on the table in front of you at 3,000 degrees Fahrenheit. But you bring rods of glass directly into that torch, and you can make pendants, beads, small animal sculptures. The kids love to do the fish or ladybugs and stuff like that, which you can then glue a magnet to and make into fridge magnets or brooches and what have you. So those are the classes we've got going. We're just relearning how to do furnace working without blowing down the pipe ourselves. So we now have a mechanical device to blow down the pipe. But me and my assistant, before we can teach that, have to be good at working with that, and that's become a process. And so come the fall, I think September, we're going to be offering our first glass learning experiences again, which will be people can come in and learn how to make glass pumpkins, will be the first thing. Fingers crossed.
That's great to hear. It's nice to see that you're getting things going.
Yeah.
Even this summer.
And we are a member of Valley Arts, and we've been working with Gary for the last 3 years. I think we've done a couple of events, and we're hoping to do something with the plein air.
Yes.
This summer. So when the plein air is there, we're going to hopefully do some glass blowing demonstrations that people can come. We have a deck in front of the barn that people can all stand. So we don't have to have people inside a closed space. We can all be outside and everybody can watch a glass blowing demonstration on the deck.
Our Sultan Sand Studio will be one of the painting sites for the Plein Air Festival. And I want to talk to you, Kevin. Your concert is the day of the Plein Air Festival.
Oh, wow.
So let me work with you on putting your concert as a painting site for artists.
See, isn't it good to get everyone in the same room?
Yeah,
Oh,
right,
absolutely.
yeah.
On August 14th.
Yeah.
That's great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, that's exciting.
Yeah. Eric, not to be mercenary, but I don't think people understand the economic impact that the arts have in the Valley.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, in 2013, Valley Arts alone put $23,000 back into the hands of the artist through sales. And just this weekend in Warren, we had a 3-day workshop. We had 24 meals at the Warren store. And let me tell you, a plug for Warren store, they're sponsoring this. It was fantastic. Just fantastic.
And again, as I said earlier, and how much when people come here to go skiing, or they come for a wedding, or they come for a hiking or biking, or whatever the reason that they come here, the texture that the arts community adds to their visit is huge, and that's a big part of what makes this place special. When you go out to the restaurants, or you go out to any of the stores, and you meet it's a small town. You meet these artists, you meet these people. It's interesting. They're interesting folks.
Yeah, I mean, it's been interesting what Pam was saying, that you have mainly locals.
Yeah.
I mean,
We're starting to now we're open back up to people who have not been here, or
Right.
the whole 14-day out-of-state thing is gone, and it's amazing. I mean, we have a wedding party that wants to offer it to some of their wedding guests who maybe aren't into hiking or whatever for that weekend.
We were lucky enough to have a good couple of years before the pandemic hit. What we found, we could judge that, it's going to be a bad ski day. We're going to be run off our feet.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a bad ski day.
Apparently there is. There are a lot of people that come to us and say, it's not good for skiing today, and they come and
Tony, some people think there's not a good ski day, right?
No, it's true. The days that are bad, or even the days that are too cold. We had a couple really cold days where by 11 o'clock the shop was...
Let's throw some pottery.
Yeah. No, just shopping. And also, not everybody wants to ski all day. That's the thing I've been learning, is there's a lot of people who we have had a few people who have second homes and come here every weekend, and I don't want to, well, it usually is the wife, but, or so far in our experience, it's only been the wife who says, I like to do 4 runs with my kids and my husband, and then I'm done, and I'm so happy to have a place to come now, so we've done.
I have a student from Massachusetts who is coming back this coming weekend for the first time in 16 months or so. But her family are big skiers. She hates it. She hates skiing, but she wants to be with her family.
Yeah.
So they were an amazing family, because they contacted us about every 2 or 3 months to ask, when we were reopening. We said, well, because of the 14-day thing, we're just not in that place. but they donated to help keep us going.
Oh, that's so awesome.
And they just booked for their daughter to come and do a day of work on Father's Day on Sunday.
Right.
And because she wants to go to art school.
Yeah.
And this is a thing that she has no access to where she lives.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So they come up, they have a condo on Sugarbush, they come up every weekend during the winter for skiing. And they drop Ashlyn off in the morning and they pick her up in the afternoon and she's done a day of glasswork with us.
Oh, that's so great. Yeah.
Yeah, very, very often we'll get a call from an inn up at Moosewalk, and they'll say, we have some guests here that are looking for something to do. Can they come up? So we spend an hour with them, taking them around, showing them the paintings, framing, how to pick a frame for a painting, stuff like that.
Yeah, we've partnered with a couple of inns. We've done work with, we had a very loose partnership with the Round Barn before all this happened, but the Featherbed has been a great partner to us. And so my wife does a yoga studio as well, so we do outdoor yoga with the Featherbed, but they've also been, the owners came and did one of my classes and they show off their work. And so when there's a lot of people that are like, well, you know, it's too wet to go out hiking, or we've got a few hours to kill this afternoon. Is there something they can do? And so the inns have been great at saying like, oh, there's this place that does that. So.
No, and I'm glad you brought up the economic part of it, because it is really, really important. And the artists can't be there if they're not making a reasonable living, and so in the inns and the way everyone kind of works together. And I think one of clearly it's what brought you guys, Evan and Pam here to, and all of you actually, because of the scene here, and that. Art is everywhere in this community. I mean, and I think people don't necessarily realize. I mentioned earlier, you go into the Village Grocery and Troy's metal sculptures are in there, and they're remarkable. Or you go out onto Bridge Street and you see the sculpture garden and the beautiful gardens at All Things Bright and Beautiful. And I'm so thankful at the Chamber Visitor Center, where so many people come in to be introduced to our community. Gary is generous enough to keep having rotating art exhibits in there, and people love them. I mean, I can't tell you how many people they just like walking into an art gallery. So they really, really love that. And then you go down the road to the Mad River Fiber Mill, and it's fiber art stuff, and what she does down there is really remarkable. And just over here, I was thinking about John Matus and those huge mega sculptures that he's got on the side of the road, and everyone's always asking about those. And the Bundy Gallery. It's an amazing gallery space that people, you have to know that it's there, but people, are certainly well aware of it. So there's, like I said, there's lots and lots of different art in our community, and and I was even thinking about the restaurants. You go to Worthy Burger, all of Liz Harris's artwork is, the paintings that are there, and at a Peasant, and it's great to see all the different sectors of the community working together. So.
Well, we always talk at our board meetings for Med River Valley Arts. The Med River Valley is sort of the center of Vermont, and we want to make it the art center of Vermont.
Yeah, and I think in a lot of ways it is.
Yeah.
And now it's just we need to tell this story and do these kinds of things and start making more people aware of it and getting into magazines like in France. That helps, right? So, but I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and appreciate everything that you're doing for the arts community and for our community generally. And keep up the good work, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks
Thanks.
for having us.
Good.